The United States has decided to lift the ban on offensive weapons sales to Saudi Arabia. According to a U.S. senior administration officer, the Biden administration will consider a new transfer on a typical case-by-case basis, consistent with the conventional arms transfer policy. The U.S. conventional arms transfer policy provides a framework for assessing arms transfers, aiming to prevent human rights abuses and humanitarian violations, support allies' legal compliance, and combat corruption. It includes commerce-regulated items like firearms and military components. The sale of offensive weapons to Saudi Arabia was frozen in 2021, citing the kingdom's operations against the Iran-aligned Houthis in Yemen. The use of offensive weapons was causing heavy civilian casualties. After the 3-year policy comes to an end, the U.S. administration will be briefed this week, and sales of weapons can resume as early as next week. Under U.S. law, major weapons deals require congressional review and have previously been blocked because of bipartisan concerns about supplying offensive weapons to Saudi Arabia due to its human rights record and impact on Yemen. War is the biggest business for the United States. Half of the world's 20 biggest arms makers are US-based. The US military invests more than $310 billion in manufacturing war weapons. The United States has 5 major prime contractors for weapon manufacturing. Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, RTX, Boeing, and General Dynamics have consistently topped the defense news rankings of the world's largest arms manufacturers. US-based manufacturer Lockheed Martin earned 96% of its revenue from military contracts. Northrop Grumman relies on the US government for 82% of its revenue. Over the last 9 years, Yemen has been torn apart by war. On one hand, local groups are fighting each other, while a Saudi-led coalition attacks with greater force. Saudi Arabia's involvement in the conflict is complicated. In 2014, the Houthis, a rebel Shia militia from northern Yemen, took over Yemen's capital Sana'a, ousting President Abdul Mansur Hadi from power. Hadi had been an ally of Saudi Arabia and fled there as soon as he could. In response, the Saudis formed a coalition with several other regional actors to return their man Hadi to power. Since then, the country has been engaged in a long and protracted war with the Houthis. It has been a campaign of relentless airstrikes. Over the past 7 years, more than 25,054 air raids have been carried out by both sides. Saudi forces say they have been targeting the enemy, but human rights groups accuse the coalition of bombing dozens of hospitals and schools. By the end of 2021, the UN estimated that the conflict in Yemen had resulted in 377,000 deaths, of which 11,000 were children. Yemen is in an immense humanitarian crisis. 80% of the Yemeni population is dependent on aid, and aid is being used as a weapon. 14% of the country's population is displaced. In April 2022, a UN-brokered ceasefire began, significantly reducing hostilities in the 33.7 million-strong country. Although the truce expired in October of the previous year, fighting has largely remained on hold. In September, Houthi officials visited Riyadh for the first time since the war began. The United States is already supporting Israel in its actions against Gaza and providing weapons to Ukraine in the conflict with Russia. Some commentators suggest that this may be one of the reasons why resistance to arms deals with Saudi Arabia has mellowed over the last year. The US is allegedly hoping for a normalization of ties between Saudi Arabia and Israel as a direct result of this decision. Whether the provision of offensive weapons will lead to this normalization or ignite a new conflict in Yemen remains to be seen.